So beautiful people, welcome to the Joy of Living with Dr. Joy. And today's topic is business leadership redefined. But before we get started, you know what we do on the Joy of Living show. We take 3 deep breaths. Are you ready? Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Last one, inhale, exhale. How do you feel? Oh, John, you are still breathing. I know I feel great. I want to welcome John Bentley to the Joy of Living with Dr. Joy podcast. Thank you for joining, John.
You are welcome, Dr. Joy. I'm excited to share with you and learn from you today as well.
So, I'm going to read a little bit about you, share a little bit about you with our viewers and our listeners, okay? So,
Sure.
John Bentley, the guy on the screen, is a leadership expert dedicated to transforming how leaders guide their teams in the digital age. As the kindness guy, John emphasizes empathy, clear communication, and the strategic use of technology. With a focus on self leadership, John equips new leaders to adapt, thrive, and set high standards in a hybrid work environment. His mission is to redefine leadership to meet the evolving demands of today's world. And also, John is the author of 52 Ways to Motivate Yourself. Welcome, John Bentley, to the Joy of Living with Dr. Joy podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. I'm going to have to get you to send what you read to me. That was awesome. Thank you for synthesizing it.
Well, this is gonna be your link, so you can get it anytime you want. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, in your personal story, which is incredibly inspiring, you mentioned about some grief that you went through. Are you able to share that a little bit with us?
Absolutely. It's amazing when you face reality, you have the courage to face reality of how you can work through things, especially when people come alongside of you and love you. So it was December the 11th, 2010, my wife and I's anniversary, and we received a phone call from our second daughter, Krista, and we were expecting to hear, "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad." But you know what we heard instead?
What?
"Dad, Natalie's dead."
Who's
Wow.
Natalie?
Natalie's my daughter that passed away at 28 years of age due to prescription drug addiction. So when you talk about that grief,
Oh,
for
John, I'm
eight,
so sorry.
it's okay. It's okay because grief, if I sit in it and hold on to it, and this is what happened to me for 8 years, it became Groundhog's Day. Remember the movie Groundhog's Day with Bill
Yes.
Murray? I relived that 8 years. 8 years every day. I relived that. So I don't know what the number is. 8 times 365, right? And here's what happened. I gained 50 pounds, and I poured myself into what I knew that gave me value: work. I just became a workaholic again because that's how I found value in me. But what I didn't realize is it was destroying me because I didn't know how to deal with reality of what had happened. And I didn't want to ask for help. But then a
Mhm.
friend came alongside me and he said, "Hey, JB," yeah, my friends call me JB. "Look, man, you have gifts to offer, brother, to the world, to your family. And right now, they're hidden. Nobody can see them because you're pouring yourself into work. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, man, is find 52 quotes. And I want you to read a quote a week, and you determine how you can use that information to shift how you're currently thinking. Because we all know the power of thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
They
It
can either
starts
keep us
here.
prisoner, they can keep us prisoner, or they can let us become a pioneer for our future in the present moment. And that's how I birthed that book, 52 Ways to Motivate Yourself, How to Live a Positive Life in a Complicated and Complex World.
You know, at the end, before we leave here, you're going to tell the viewers and the listeners where they could get that book. And thank you for sharing that, and my condolences. I know
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you share more about the pivotal moment when you decided to collect motivational quotes and how it led you to the creation of your book, 52 Ways to Motivate Yourself? Go a little bit
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah, it was my friend Kevin McNulty that came alongside him. He does what we do. He's a consultant. He helps people look inside themselves. He says the gate to change is locked on the inside.
Mm,
And that's what he helped me realize. So what I started doing is looking at various quotes that might help me shift the way I thought. And then by writing out the content to process how to think about it. For instance, that first quote talks about flexibility. And I think you and I both know in this world, if we can't be agile and pivot
hmm.
in a given moment, and that's just how we look at situations.
That's right.
And so for me, it was, am I going to resist this? Am I going to fight it? Am I going to be at it? Or am I going to be with it and come alongside it and see what I can learn and grow? So what I've learned is that when I focus on a given topic, a given quote for a week,
Hmm.
it energizes me. It helps me focus on where I want to grow versus where I'm going. And it helps me soar instead of suffer. And so that's the way those quotes help me do. They help me soar during those moments instead of suffer. And now I'm excited when what I want to call it here, when situations come up that don't feel good, that aren't good, it's
Yes.
just an opportunity for me to learn and grow and become more of who I'm designed to be, which then allows me to use my gifts to serve others.
Wow. So it took you 8 years to pivot to manifest these 52 quotes.
Well, it took me about a week to manifest the 52 quotes. That was the catalyst, the pivotal moment that helped me get
Good.
out of living the same day 8 years in a row
Yeah.
of guilt, of regret that if
Right.
I could have, if I should have, if I would have.
Right.
And what it helped me do, Dr. Joy, it helped me focus on what I did have versus what I didn't have, which was my daughter. But man,
Uh-huh.
in a lot of ways, I still had her
Yeah.
because I could see all the greatness, the celebration
Hmm.
that she brought to life. And one of her favorite sayings, and I've still got it on a video, is she'd go, "Now, Dad." And so when I get in these situations, I hear that voice where I'm feeling stuck or something comes up, "Now, Dad."
Hmm.
So I started focusing on what I do have versus what I don't have. Because
Well,
I had a daughter that adopted my grandson, Alex, who was Natalie's son. He was almost 5 when she passed away at 28, and how Kristen Kendall became a mom and dad overnight, and that because of that, they grew and were told they'd probably never have children of their own. Their twin boys just turned 11, and Alex just started college. So you see, when you
wow.
look back, while that situation occurred, you looked at what it also birthed
Right.
and what's happening now.
Right. So you've been counting your blessings. You have a lot to be grateful for.
Absolutely. And
A
so
lot.
I learned to focus on what I can control, what versus what I can't control. And then I also learned to live in the present moment, not live in the past.
Oh,
So when I
yeah.
focus on what I do have, what I can control, and in the present moment with a focus on the future, the suffering goes away. I'll have moments where I experience pain just because of life, but I don't
Right.
suffer anymore because I know how to take charge of it.
Oh, that is so good. And that's what you teach people how to do. Yes. So in your work, you emphasize the importance of self leadership. And I think you mentioned those three components: what? Control, present, and let the past go.
Woo, come on now. That's right.
Present, yes, control, present, let the past go. And, we have to get out of our own way, right, John?
Well, it's amazing, and it was. I believe that people come into our life to help us become who we are designed again. So
Hmm.
on April 9th, 1992, the most respected person in a 1,200 person organization took a Coke can and shook it and handed it to me and asked me to open it. What do you
Ooh,
think I said? In my best Georgia slang, I said, "I ain't opening that." Well, he
I'm
wanted to
telling you,
know why.
I would have passed that back.
Absolutely. I had it, and he said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because if I pop the top, I didn't pop it now, but I made that clicking sound." I said, "It'll spew all over me and you." It won't feel good. It'll be sticky. It'll be nasty. He took the Coke can, looked me in the eye, and in a truthful and kind way. I want the audience to get that. Truthful and kind way. You see, if I'm just truthful, I'll probably tell you off, and I don't really care how you feel because it's about me.
Right.
Or if I'm just kind, I may skirt the issue and not really talk about what's happening. But he was truthful, shared the facts, and did it in a kind way. He said, that's what you do when things don't go your way and you think you're right. You spew all over people. And John, I'm here to tell you today, until you learn to lead yourself, you'll never earn the right to lead others. You will struggle, be frustrated, and limit your opportunities for success.
John, let me tell you something. You need to stand on top of the highest mountain in Georgia and scream that. I'm telling you, a lot of people need to hear this.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Joy. It was a pivotal moment. I still didn't know what to do with it, but here's what I did know. Is it was important that I took the time to understand why I spiraled out of control when things didn't go my way and I thought I was right. And do you know why I was leaving? I was leaving the Air Force is what I was doing. You know why? Because they weren't promoting me fast enough. Egotistical, I know it all. And you know where it was coming from? Insecurity that I'm not good enough. Because you see, growing up, and I'm not faulting my dad for this. I loved him. There was three pivotal things I heard that could be considered adverse experiences that will impact you into your adult life, which it did me. Is children are to be seen and not
heard.
So I was invisible. I didn't know it at the time, but that's how it impacted me. Don't cry or I'll give you something to
cry about.
So I was not allowed to express my emotions. So I suppressed them.
That's right.
And this is going to hurt me more than it's
you.
So now I'm, as a 7-year-old little boy who my father's my hero. What am I doing? I don't want to hurt my dad.
Don't want to hurt your dad. So you suppress your emotions and you stay quiet.
Yeah.
Which is what most of us back in the 50s, 60s, I was a 60s baby, you know, we kind of heard that. I know I heard this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. Okay. And depending on who I'm around in the family, they may say, shh, you know, this is adult conversation. Okay. And don't cry. And I know we're supposed to be talking about business leadership redefined, but even yesterday when I was in the grocery store, Fresh Market in my neighborhood, getting some items, I put my items on the conveyor belt and the gentleman says, "How are you doing today?" I said, "I'm actually great. How are you?" Right? Because, you know, I'll talk to anybody. And he says, "I actually feel like crying, but I can't." And I said, "Okay, I need you to do me a favor." After he finished bagging my stuff, I said, "You know what? Could you come with me to the car, please? I need help." And probably to him, it looked like I didn't, but I really did because the bags were heavy and I didn't want to lift them. And as we were walking out, I said to him, "Cry."
Good for you.
I said, "I want you to cry. And this is the reason why. Because holding it in is going to hurt you more than letting it out." I said, "So take your time right now and cry in front of me. It's just me and you. Now I have 4 bags. You can take as long as you want to put them in the trunk. But I want you to cry. I don't want you to feel bad about crying. And there's no judgment here." He cried for a couple of minutes. I mean, I didn't embrace him or anything because, you know, it didn't seem like I needed to do that. But he felt empowered to do that. And I asked him if he felt better. And he said, "Thank you, ma'am." And I said, "Okay, I'll look for you next time that I'm in Fresh Market." And so I'm sure that helped him throughout the rest of his day.
I know it did. And you talk about business redefined. Let's think about the importance of human-centered leadership today. you influenced and gave that gentleman permission to be okay, even though he wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And see, that is so needed in our hybrid remote work world today. And it requires the ability to lead yourself,
Right.
your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own behaviors, so you can help people connect in this digital virtual world in a way that makes sense to themselves.
Right.
And that's why self-leadership today is more important than ever. I'm sitting at home on my computer working remotely, and all of a sudden I get a distraction. There's a lot of times I'll get frustrated. I'll stop and just go do something else to feel okay in the moment.
Mhm.
How do we help people, show up when things don't feel good, but yet give their best in those moments? And it's doing just what you did, helping them know that no matter what's going on in their life, you're there for them, whether it's through a telephone call, a text, a chat, or even hopping on Zoom like we're doing here.
Right. 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 So how did your own experiences, and maybe you already said this, shape this belief? And what are some practical steps new leaders can take to lead themselves effectively?
Well, the first is going back to what we said earlier. It's having the courage to face reality and understand what you're thinking. Is it the truth? Is there a small amount, a large amount, or is it really a lie I'm telling myself?
Oh.
Okay, so let's move forward a little bit to I actually got promoted and stayed in the Air Force a few months later and retired from the Air Force. And I didn't stay in because the promotion, I stayed in it because someone cared about me,
Mhm.
told me they cared about me in a way that I could receive it and that I could do something about it.
Right.
So that I had to have the courage to go, well, why do I think this way? And it went back to, you know, I didn't get to be seen or heard or valued when I was a kid. So I'm gonna tell you what, I'm an adult now and everybody's gonna know it. So don't you shut me up or shush me or try to quiet me down. So I had to face the reality that when people were asking questions about my projects or were working to help me, that it really wasn't trying to hurt or harm me or shut me up. It was to walk alongside me. So about 6 months later, I'm briefing a commander, which is like a mayor of a city,
Mhm.
4 weeks in a row. He ripped me up one side and down the other. And I said rip me, but it's really my presentation. Had nothing to do with me.
But you
And
felt
he's
it though. You felt like
oh,
it too.
well, here's what we know. The body remembers what happened when we grew up. I may not, but the body remembered. It
Oh
took me
yeah.
back there, right?
Yep.
So he was getting ready to walk out the room. It was just me and him in the room. I was getting ready to walk out, and I said, "Sir, what am I doing so terrible? It's causing you to rip my presentation of me apart." 2 words he said, Bentley Q-tip. I did the same thing, and I thought, what's those things I clean my ears with got to do with this? And he got truthful and kind. You hear me here? And said, John, quit taking it personal.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the information that we need to disseminate to these men and women around the table
Yes.
who are conducting missions around the world. We want them to go over there and return safely. And John, in the state of Oklahoma, we have $1 billion economic impact. So John, you must learn to control your emotions and not let them control you. And I said, for the next time I said, I had the humility to ask, courage to seek, humility to ask, where can I learn that?
And then embrace it.
And embrace it. And he told me. So moving forward, what I also learned when I got stuck again is I didn't have a purpose in life moving forward after my daughter's death. I no longer had a purpose. I'm just meant to work and work myself to death.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody encouraged me to write a letter to my future self, 5 years into the future.
I've done that.
Yeah. Tell me more.
I did one
Let's tell
going
the
back
audience.
too. I did one
Yeah.
to my younger self when I felt
Tell
bad.
me about it. Tell us about it. Because see, this is so important to business and leadership redefined. It's these simple tools that are still relevant today that we forget about.
You want
Tell
to
us more.
know what I wrote to my
Yeah.
younger self?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologized to my younger self, And there were just things. And then when I wrote it, it was because I was feeling bad that day. And I did a post on it. I shared it on social media in as to how that came about and some of the elements. And
Yeah.
I gave my permission, I gave myself permission to embrace my younger joy, right? Yeah. And oh, woo, that was deep. Now they didn't see me weep on social media. They saw the clean version, but
Yeah.
yeah, but if I'm sharing with you that I'm not feeling well, that means there was some waterworks in the process, and it's okay because you would
Amen.
rather get it out than keep it in. But John, we don't have much time. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have to continue this. So here's what I want to ask. So in your upcoming projects, you mentioned addressing psychological pain points that imposter syndrome and fear of failure. What strategies do you suggest for new leaders to overcome these challenges and build confidence? Because we all have, anyone that's a leader, anyone that is striving for success has those two things that you mentioned, imposter syndrome and
Absolutely.
fear of failure. I got it. And
Same
I gotta
here.
get out of my own way.
Yes, and I'm calling them mental traps. I've identified 10 of them, right? And for imposter syndrome and fear of failure, I'm going to encourage people to write down what they're thinking when they're experiencing that. Listen to their self-talk. Get it out where you can see it and read it. Because now I can go back and have the courage to face the reality that, wait a minute, I may be feeling that way, but you know what? It's not true. Because let's look at the successes I've had. And here's what happens. If I hang on to that imposter syndrome, now I'm suppressing some emotions. I'm not telling nobody because I don't want them to know.
That's
It's
right.
like putting a beach ball underneath the water while I'm continually talking to myself. But when you finally let that beach ball go, what happens? It
Oh,
comes up out of that water.
you feel so much better.
Yes. And so when I write it out, or I could call Dr. Joy because Dr. Joy won't judge me.
Nope.
And she'll let me share exactly what I'm saying out loud. And then she'll probably say, hey, John, what did you hear yourself say? And how much of that is true?
Mm,
So maybe it's a moment I'm having.
hmm
Maybe it's a flashback to the past where I'm focusing on something I did wrong. But
right.
here's what I learned. And I think Zig Ziglar said this: failure is an event, not a person.
That's right.
So when I look back to the past, it's what did I learn? How can I use it in the present? And how can it shape my future, like my letter to my future self did about writing the book, You Are a Gift, creating a
Hmm.
foundation in my daughter's name for You Are a Gift to raise money to help women overcome prescription drug addiction. So when and you don't think I had imposter syndrome trying to
Oh
start a
yeah.
foundation?
Oh yes.
Oh,
I just wrote down Zig Ziglar's quote. So I'm just saying.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh
So
yeah.
since I'm going to ask you to monitor your self-talk, and I'm going to ask you to recognize that mistakes will happen, but that doesn't mean you're a mistake. Failure will occur. It's an event. Use those to help propel you into the future to become more of the person you are designed to be.
And we can add one more, right? Done
Do
is
it.
done is better than perfect. Because I had that whole perfectionist thing going. And I'm
Yeah.
still working through it, even though I'm in my sixth decade of life, right? But we all have it because we strive to be the best that we can. And that's all we can do is strive to be the best. But if there's no such thing as one perfect, right?
No. And may I share one other big tip that has
Yes.
changed my life, help others? Identify your personal core values
Hmm.
because they help ground you and make decisions. My three are be approachable, be teachable, be helpful. And then I have the acronym WIN, W-I-N, that are behavior statements that line up with them. So to be approachable, I have to W, welcome different and divergent thinking so we can make the best decision with the information available.
That's right.
The I, to be teachable, is I've got to inquire with curiosity to strengthen relationships,
Hmm.
build trust, and gain buy-in. And the N, for be helpful when warranted is never stop serving others with my God-given gifts.
That's right.
So when I have those moments of imposter syndrome, fear, failure, perfectionism, another psychological pain point, I go,
Yes,
wait a minute. Can I be approachable? Because if I can't be approachable, I can't be teachable. If I
that's
can't be
right.
teachable, I can't be helpful.
That's right. And then you're in a downward spiral. And if you're not
Got it.
approachable, someone's not going to help you. How about that?
Amen. That's a high
Right?
five right there, virtual hug.
That virtual hug, yeah. All right. So here, for new leaders who are struggling to get results through and with others who think and behave differently, what are some key pieces of advice you would give them to navigate these challenges and foster a more cohesive team?
Yeah, there's two things. One, you've got to know yourself and what your strengths are. And I call it your behavioral style. I call it
Mhm.
behavioral vehicles. You see, if I was a vehicle, I'd be a 1968 candy apple red super sport Camaro with a 396 engine. I'm powerful, I look good, and you know I'm
And
coming.
you're going fast.
Yes, absolutely. But there's situations when I work with other people that don't move as fast.
Right.
They want to think about things before they speak up. I've got to learn to back off my accelerator. So the number one thing is you've got to understand the situation and the environment you're in,
Mm-hmm.
because here's what I know. Behavior is a choice. We all choose our behaviors, and behaviors have a payoff or a cost. You've got to find ways to choose behaviors when driving your vehicle with all your life experiences to where you can be with people. It's a payoff
Right.
versus a cost and be at people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving to Montgomery, Alabama later today to work with an organization around EQ, emotional quotient connections.
Yes.
When I get to Birmingham, I can't drive my Camaro fast. I got to back off that accelerator because traffic's going to back up. And knowing me, if my emotions get the best of me, I'm going to try to cut in and out of traffic.
And don't do
Well,
that, please.
see, exactly. I got to choose because of the situation,
Right.
behaviors that have a payoff versus a cost. That's number one. Number two, understand a story about the people you're leading and working with.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Carol Brigant, 68 years old. I was her supervisor and I was in my 40s. She was one of those, it's got to be right. And once we know what right looks like, we're going to move fast.
Mm.
Here's her story. Single mom, raised two girls on her own, loved her grandchildren. Once I learned to let Carol come in for 5 minutes on Monday and show me all the pictures she took on her smartphone, she'd move heaven and earth for me because I made 5 minutes a week just to show and be with her on what was important to her.
That's right. Because you embraced her and you
Yeah.
and you showed her that you cared about what happens with her outside the office.
Bingo. And so when we say business redefined, it's more about how can you get better at the human skills to get
Mm-hmm.
work done? Because everything we do is primarily through knowledge today, through meetings, then producing a product. Well, guess what? I can't draw out your best if I don't value you as a human being and who you are and what's important to you.
Right. You said get better with.
Uh-oh, I forget. Tell me, remind me. What did I say?
No, I was writing it down.
Get better with the human skills.
Yeah, with human skills. That's right.
Human skills. You know,
Mm-hmm.
AI is great, but I can't use AI to tell how you feel.
Right.
I can use AI to help me reframe an email or
Right.
create a document or do a formula.
But
But you
there's
know
no
what?
feelings in it.
I can't connect with you at the heart level.
And then we also have to be willing to let people share. So we have to encourage them to be vulnerable. And in corporate America, a lot of times the approach is a little off.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one way to be vulnerable is for leaders, and everybody's a leader. It's about influencing you. It's
That's
not a
right.
position. Is to write your leadership blueprint. I've written my leadership blueprint. Here's my values. Here's what I expect from you. Here's what you can expect from me. Here's what shaped my life. And I tell these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how I'm going to behave when things are going great, not so good, and terrible. And guess what? When I slip, trip, and fall, because I will, I need you to remind me, hey, John, this is not how you said you wanted to lead. Hey, well, thanks for pointing it out. To be able to accept that feedback and quit taking it personal.
Personal. You know, a really good book that
Tell me.
a a former, I guess a former acquaintance, because I mean she's not in my life anymore. I know she's doing well, but things happen, right? Back in 2005, when I got laid off from my senior executive role in financial services, I kept saying a certain phrase. I even forgot what it was. And she took it as though, you're taking it personal, girl. I got a book for you. Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. Oh,
Yes.
and then he did the fifth agreement. Okay.
I don't know that one. Tell me.
Oh, the fifth agreement, spirit of discernment.
Oh, I got
Well,
to get it now.
that's what the fifth agreement is. But the
Okay.
four agreements, the fastest but most informative 98 pages you can read. I read it over and over. And
Yes.
I refer that book out to a lot of
It's a
people.
great book.
Yeah, it's a great book. Don't take things personally is one of the agreements. Okay, John, we got to wrap this up. You know, you got to come back
I
because
would love to.
there's so many things to unpack. So, last question, how can people get in touch with you and get your book?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. One, you can go to my website, www.power, the number two, transform.com.
Okay.
I don't have the book on there, but you can reach out to me and I'll be able to get it to you. You can also buy it on Amazon, but here's the promise I'll make to you. If you want to buy it from me and I'll sign it for you, just email John at power2transform.com. And that's the number two, John at power2transform.com.
Wow. Thank you for offering that to the viewers and the listeners. And John Bentley, thank you for being a guest on the Joy of Living with Dr. Joy podcast. You shared a lot of valuable information today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. It's been a joy. I look forward to coming back.
Okay, you will too. Until next time, be blessed, stay healthy. See ya.